Likely you have experienced this many times. You have gone out drinking the night before, maybe drank a little bit too much, end up getting hungry, and then you find yourself binging. And you keep wondering, why does this happen? And then you wake up in the morning and you feel guilt and you feel shame and you think, I can't believe I did that, and what is wrong with me? Why can't I control myself around alcohol? If this is you and you are finding that every time you drink alcohol, you end up binging, I want to talk to you about why that's happening and some ways that you can stop it from happening again. You likely have already tried many things to mitigate or stop the experience of you binging when you drink alcohol, but nothing has probably worked. You keep finding yourself binging over and over again every time you drink, and at this point you're probably thinking, there's got to be something wrong with me. I can't figure this out, and I'm probably alone. Nobody else is experiencing this. They seem like they can eat normal amounts of food when they drink, but when I drink, I just can't control myself around food. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about why hunger and fullness and eating get so messed up in the context of alcohol and when you're drinking, and some specific things that you can do to stop yourself from binging when you are drinking alcohol. If you don't already know me, my name is Catherine Metzler. I'm a dietitian and I help people to heal their relationship with food and their body. You definitely want to take a listen to this. Common diet culture advice that you've likely already tried and heard of to reduce binge eating or to stop it entirely when you're drinking is to have healthy snacks around and not have tempting foods around and drink water and do all the things that honestly just don't work. Sometimes they might and sometimes they might not. What happens when you go out and eat food with friends? What happens when you do have that food in your house? What happens if you are working on healing your relationship with food and you're deciding to bring those foods into your house, and then you drink and then you feel out of control around those foods? So we're gonna get into why that advice doesn't work and what I would recommend instead. So the night starts and you decide to have a couple drinks, and maybe a couple drinks turn into a lot more drinks. And then all of a sudden you get this overwhelming feeling of hunger and you start eating. And when you start eating, it feels like you can't stop. And maybe you start eating with friends and then you come home and you eat even more food and it just feels insatiable. Your hunger and your appetite feels insatiable. You can't feel a sense of fullness. And before you know it, you've found yourself in a binge eating experience and you wonder, why did this happen? So here are a couple reasons why binge eating happens when you're drinking. The first reason is that alcohol is an appetite suppressant. This means that when you're drinking alcohol, even if you're feeling hungry, even if your body's like, hey, we need some food, you're not gonna get those same signals when you're drinking. And so what happens is you drink alcohol, your blood sugar will go up and then it falls. And when it's falling, you get that overwhelming, insatiable desire to want to eat. And this often is partly due to the fact that you were not eating consistently during the drinking experience. Another common reason why binge eating happens when you are drinking and after you're done a night of drinking is because a lot of people will restrict their eating during the day specifically to be able to give themselves permission to drink. And this is something that we are taught and told all the time in diet culture, that you need to quote unquote save up your calories in order to be able to drink. But what ends up happening is you don't get enough energy from food, then you drink, and then of course you feel hungry because you haven't had enough food during the day to satisfy and meet your needs. So you're gonna get this insatiable hunger that will arise anyway, and then on top of that you've got the blood sugar dysregulation, we call it, that's happening in the context of alcohol. So again, it just sort of hits you all of a sudden and you feel like you can't stop eating and you need food right now immediately. And the last common reason that binge eating happens in the context of alcohol is largely because of food restriction, dieting, lifestyle programs that people are following outside of the drinking experience that is pretty regimented. It's very strict. There are a lot of rules. Maybe they are cutting out certain foods and food groups. And then what happens? They drink, and that tight control that they usually have over food dissipates. It goes away because somebody is drinking. And also there's a lot of needs that aren't being met, right? Carbohydrates, for example, are a really common food that people tend to binge on when they are drinking. And it's very common that if someone is binging on carbohydrates when they are drinking, they are likely restricting carbohydrates in the diet that they're following or the choices that they're making because they have a fear of eating carbohydrates. Binge eating when you are drinking is a very common experience. If you're experiencing it, you're most certainly not alone. Lots and lots and lots of people experience it. They don't usually talk about it because there's so much shame around the binge eating experience. So then this begs the question, what do you do to help it stop? How do you stop binge eating if every time you drink, it keeps happening? There are 3 things that I want to offer to you in order to stop the binge eating when you're drinking. The first one, and you might not like this one, but the first one would be to consider drinking less alcohol. Right? The more alcohol we're drinking, the more it's going to suppress our appetite, the more that it's going to throw off our hunger and fullness cues, and likely the more that that's going to lead to us having a binge eating experience. So you might want to first address your relationship with alcohol, the quantity of alcohol that you're drinking, as a way to get a better sense for what could be going on for you. The second thing I want to offer you is to make sure that you are eating when you're planning on going out drinking. This means eating meals and snacks during the day and ideally before you go out in anticipation of drinking. And now this is going to be really hard if you are trying to restrict your food intake or you're caught up in diet culture and dieting. But this often is a huge help in reducing the experience of binge eating or eliminating it entirely, which is to make sure that you're eating enough throughout the day consistently, even when you're planning on going out to drink. And the last thing that will help you to reduce the experience of binge eating when you're drinking is to address and work on your relationship with food. And what I mean by this is that when you are not exposed to certain foods regularly, when you're not giving yourself permission to have certain foods, as soon as you start drinking, as soon as those dieting, restricting goggles come off in the context of drinking, then you're going to continuously find yourself feeling out of control around certain foods because every time you eat that food, it's going to feel like the last time you're eating it. Let's take a common one like chips or cookies. Maybe normally you don't allow them into your house. Maybe normally you restrict them. Then you drink, then your blood sugar gets messed up, then you're really hungry, and then you're exposed to those cookies or chips. And then you find yourself eating the whole bag. And of course you do, because you don't normally get exposure to those foods. You feel like you shouldn't be eating them, and you're really hungry, and your body needs those carbohydrates. So one of the most helpful things, I believe, to reduce the binge eating experience when you are drinking is to work on and address your relationship with food and start to allow a variety of different kinds of foods into your life and into your diet. In summary, we've talked about some of the reasons why alcohol impacts your appetite. It suppresses your appetite. It leads to some glucose dysregulation, which just means it messes with your glucose and therefore leaves you feeling extra hungry. And then we've also talked about some of the specific reasons why you end up binging when you are drinking, as well as some specific solutions and ways that you can reduce, if not entirely eliminate, the experience of binge eating when you are drinking alcohol. Thank you for watching this video. If you're left feeling like, yes, I want to decrease or eliminate entirely the experience of binge eating when I'm drinking, but how do I do that? Check out some of the other videos that I have created, as well as the free resources that I have for you below. And I'll see you back here soon.